Some big abandoned mental hospital in our town is always infested with rowdy teenagers drinking, graffitiing, and making a mess with silly string. Eventually the town caught wind of it, and one particular Halloween, when my friends Rye, Carl, and I wanted to go exploring, apparently the town barred off every window on the first floor of the building. Security of the perimeter was also ramped up drastically. We found out the hard way after cutting through the woods and seeing security telling a mob of teens to go home. We didn't give up there though. We snuck around the perimeter through the woods to another side with no people. Then we hopped the fence and started looking for a way in. That's when we found out that all the windows had been barricaded with carbon steel bars. We heard commotion all around us, but managed to stay under the radar. We didn't want to give up though, and through our determination to find a way in, Rye spotted one window that wasn't boarded up with steel, but rather wood planks. We all had boots on, so kicking the plank in seemed plausible. However, the window was simply too high to kick up at, so Carl and I lifted Rye and actually used him and his boots as a sort of battering ram. The wood was wet and apparently rotted, so it actually snapped rather easily. After that, we simply ripped off the remainder of wood, and boom, we had our way in. We had to hurry though, before security might see. We gave Rye a boost up since he's the shortest. Then Carl and I leaped up to the ledge and squeezed in. There was junk and debris everywhere, so I took some long, flat piece of wood and covered the window with it to hide our way of entry. After that, we were all alone in a giant abandoned psych ward to explore on Halloween. Carl brought a few cans of spray paint in his backpack that we planned to use. First, we had to find a good spot to use them. Carl also brought 3 flashlights for us since of course it was pitch black in there. It was also weird stepping out from the cold, windy outside with the commotion and yelling going on to the scarily dead, silent interior. We planned on going to the top to possibly get to the roof, so we looked around for the stairs going through the dead, silent hallways. It really seemed like we were the only ones who found a way inside. We eventually found the stairs and climbed like 10 half flights of stairs to I guess the 6th floor. However, there was one more floor, the roof level, but the stairs in the hall we were in didn't lead up there, so we had to begin our search for the separate stairs to the roof level. As we were in a long, creepy corridor, there was suddenly a huge bang down the hall. We all aimed our flashlights down there, but the hallway was too long to truly see anything all the way down there. Apparently we weren't the only ones in this building. We tried to stay clear just in case it was security, so we went the opposite direction. We checked the whole hallway, then turned down some intersecting hallway area. I was in the back, so I would occasionally just glance behind me, just because it was a dark, abandoned building. A little after turning a corner, there was a crack in a piece of wood behind me. I turned since I was the only one to seem to notice it, and right there was someone peeking their head from around the corner, looking at us. But when I noticed them, they disappeared down the other hall. I called out, "Yo." I'm not really sure if it was directed to my friends, to the person I just saw, or both. My friend stopped and looked back. We went back to the corner where the halls intersected to look down that other hallway, but the guy I saw wasn't there. My friends didn't know whether I was joking or not, but at least now I knew we weren't alone in there. Eventually, we came to a part of the hall where 90% of the floor was missing, minus a very small strip still left intact. Rye insisted we were going over that, and volunteered to go first. After looking down the hole and realizing it wasn't that much of a drop, I was okay with it. It dropped into what appeared to be a bathroom, or at least what once was a bathroom. To cross, we pressed up the front of our shoes to the wall and grabbed onto a pipe that ran up the upper wall as support. I crossed last, and my 2 friends apparently didn't wait for me, because they disappeared down the hall as I called for them to wait. I then slowly started to cross the extremely narrow bridge between the 2 sides of the hole, when suddenly, I felt something grab the back of my shoe. At first, I thought it was one of my friends messing with me, but that didn't make sense. They couldn't have gotten down there so quickly. I had no free hands to be holding my flashlight though, and my friends were already gone down the hall, so I was almost in complete darkness and couldn't see who or what was trying to pull me down into that hole. I screamed for my life, so loud it could probably be heard throughout the building. My friends came rushing back, and as light once again poured into the hole, the grip on my leg was released, and then there was a sound of running from down below. We didn't try to go down there and fight the guy. We didn't even look down there to see how he could have reached me or if he was even still there. I just forced my friends to come with me all the way down the stairs back to the first floor. But now we had another problem. We forgot how we got in. There was only that one window which wasn't barred up with steel, and we blocked it with wood. We were looking around in a hurry because of what happened. Nobody would play a joke like that. It felt like we were navigating a maze down there on the first floor looking for that stupid window. Every corner we turned, I was afraid we were going to see that face, peering from another corner. And it happened. Since I was now the one leading the three of us, I was the first to see it. At the end of the hall we were running down, there was that person, hiding half his body behind the wall. This time, as opposed to last time, however, I could actually see that he was wearing a mask. Was it the same person who tried grabbing me through that hole? I don't know, but I still don't doubt it. We turned the other way and ran. We didn't stop running until we finally found that window we entered through. Climbing out was easier than climbing in, and by the time we got outside, it seemed most of the commotion going on outside was gone. Security seemed to have kicked most of the people off the premises. We could have found a security guard and warned them of a potential psychopath in the building, but that would risk us getting busted. So instead, we ran back through the woods to the car. The rest of the night, we hung out in a parking lot, and that was our 2016 Halloween. When I was 9 years old, my parents let me go trick-or-treating without them for the first time ever. I went with my best friend at the time, Mikey, who was also 9. We were to be back home by 9 o'clock the latest, though. I think it was getting close to that point when we were still out trick-or-treating. Trick-or-treating was a little worse in our town because properties were so big, so it meant more walking for less candy. We came to one house, which sat on a corner and was isolated by a set of tall bushes. We rang the bell as usual. I still remember it all so clearly. You're about to find out just why that is, though. An older man opens the door, probably in his mid-50s, thin grayish hair and a mustache. He asks what our costumes are and talks down to us like we're 6 instead of 9. He asked us if we were with anyone else and seemed surprised that our parents weren't with us. Then he opened the door completely to reveal some kind of obstacle course tunnel he'd set up in his living room. It was made of cardboard boxes and Halloween decorations. Admittedly, it looked cool, and when he said in order to get our candy we'd have to make it through the obstacle course, it was very tempting. Mikey and I looked at one another and said okay. The man told us to come in, but he didn't look at us as he said it. Instead, he looked outside as he slowly shut the door. I crawled into that tunnel made out of boxes first, and Mikey followed after me. It was really dark inside of this tunnel since the man had only some dim orange Halloween lights on in the room. There were fake spider webs and other Halloween toys scattered throughout the box tunnel. It was actually really big and well put together because we struggled to find the way to the other end. But when we did, it led to a small room also lit up by orange Halloween lights. There was a note in this room pointing to a door saying "Candy down there." Mikey went to open the door, revealing stairs to the basement. There was more orange light down there. The man was nowhere to be seen though. Me and Mikey started making our way down the stairs, and when we got to the bottom, we saw nothing but a big, empty basement. Then, the door above us slammed shut. We went back up the stairs to try and open it, but it was locked. We didn't know what to do other than cry for help, but we stopped when we heard the doorbell ring upstairs. It rang repeatedly, actually. We listened by the basement door to hear anything. Then we heard what sounded like the front door opening, so we started screaming at the top of our lungs. Then there was a commotion outside the basement, like 2 men yelling at each other, before the door in front of us unlocked and opened, and a man and woman came up to us. The woman hugged us and told us to follow them out of the house. We followed the couple through the living room, passing the man in the corner of his room, standing over his freakish creation. The husband called the man a sick freak as we left the house. The couple took us to their house, where the husband called the cops and the wife stayed with us, asking questions like what the man said to get us inside of his house. Apparently, they'd seen us go into the man's house because they live across the street. The cops arrived, and there was an overwhelming amount of evidence for him to be arrested and tried. Of course, at the age of 9, we didn't understand the depth of the situation, but looking back now, we're all happy that those neighbors came to our rescue and justice was served that night. Halloween has been my least favorite holiday ever since I graduated college and got my own place. I hated the idea of strangers coming up to my house with their kids and asking for candy all day, but I dealt with it with a smile on my face. My property is big, but it doesn't have any fences, and times in the past I'd seen kids fight each other with silly string in my yard. Hell, I've even had kids teepee and silly string my house. One year though, late at night, past the hours where the bulk of trick-or-treaters were out, I got another ring from the doorbell, and my dog Mika started going crazy, barking as she had been doing all day. I opened the door to a person in a full-body gorilla costume. Only the face of the gorilla was freaky looking. It was a costume made to look scary. He didn't say trick or treat, he just held up a small plastic bag that was filled with some candies. Not a lot. Since it was close to the end of the night and I had a lot of candy left, I dumped a lot of it into his bag and waved goodbye. He didn't speak any words to me though, as he just stood on my stoop, slowly going through the bag, looking at the candies I just gave him. As I shut the door halfway, I stopped and continued to watch him as he looked up to me, but didn't say anything. I asked if he wanted more, but he didn't shake his head or respond or anything. He kept looking at me weirdly, so I just shut the door and locked it. I wasn't in the mood to be playing games. Plus, what he was doing was extremely unsettling. I went back downstairs to my den to continue watching the movie that I had on. That's when I heard something fall outside. The back door was right next to my couch, so I got back up and took like 5 steps to look outside. With the back patio light on, I could see a rake that had been leaning on a pole had fallen. Given how I left it sitting, it was weird for it to have fallen on its own. Being Halloween, I did feel the need to go out and investigate. I threw on my slides and went outside to pick up the rake first of all. It was not windy out at all, so it shouldn't have fallen on its own. Then I noticed the door to my shed was cracked open. I have a huge shed in my backyard that I store all of my outdoor equipment in. I went over to take a look inside. As big as the shed is, the lights haven't worked in there for years, so I had to use the light from my phone screen on full brightness as a flashlight of sorts. I didn't know what I was expecting to find, but I certainly wasn't expecting to find a gorilla mask sitting on a big box. I knew right away. The light from the phone screen only traveled so far, but I still dared walk further into the shed until I saw him in the corner. There was the person in the gorilla suit, only now he had his mask off. I stepped a little closer and realized he was facing the wall, just standing motionless. He was also not a kid, rather some old, terrifying-looking man. I didn't know if he heard or saw me yet, so I started backing away slowly. But even though I didn't make a sound, his head suddenly turned to face me. It nearly made me shit myself or have a heart attack. I ran back outside and slammed the shed door shut behind me. I then ran back to my back house door and heard the door to the shed open with a lot of force. I didn't look back, I just went inside and locked the door. Then, of course, I called the police to report a trespasser on my property. It figures, however, by the time the cops arrived, the guy in the gorilla suit was gone, mask and all. All they could do was assure me they'd be on the lookout for someone in a gorilla suit. Then they went on their way. After that, I didn't have much interest in finishing the movie, so I went upstairs and called it a night. That night in bed, I did wake up to Mika barking downstairs though, so I left my room to see where she was. She was in the den, by the back door, barking ferociously. I took a quick look outside, without letting Mika out with me, but I didn't see anyone, and the shed door was still shut. Still, I felt creeped out being out in that yard that night, so I hurried back in and brought Mika up to sleep in my room with me. I fell asleep, not without hearing Mika growling slightly occasionally, which freaked me out a lot. The next morning and ever since, life has been completely normal, and that was by far the scariest Halloween I've ever had.